This is something that doesn't really happen anymore in India, but it has happened, which is why it is so scary.
When I saw those first visuals that came out, I immediately knew it was a car bomb. This one is worrying because from what I sense is going on, there's been a slow build-up to that one blast in near the Red Fort over the last 6 months. And the story begins on the 12th of May 2025, after Prime Minister Modi's speech where he called out Pakistan's nuclear blackmail.
It's not so black and white when it comes to domestic acts of terrorism, because you have several different elements involved, several different people involved. Some of them are your own, some of them are involved perhaps unwittingly. Welcome to Another Defense. It's been a very somber week, especially for people in my circles, the privileged circle, I would say, who've grown up mostly in cities. When a bomb blast in the heart of Delhi killed 12 people. It was a terror incident. Police have said that the blast perhaps itself was not intentional, in terms of that particular moment, that particular day may not have been the choice of the attackers to carry out the attack, but it happened during transit. We'll get to that, obviously, on this episode. But this all began sort of in mid-October, and there is this entire story has an element of chance to it that is quite, a bit surprising, a bit scary even. It all began in mid-October when the Jammu and Kashmir police started investigating some posters that had come up in Nogam near Srinagar. The posters were of Jaish-e-Mohammed. The investigation led them to a Maulana. That Maulana led them to a Dr. Adil. That doctor led them to a Dr. Muzammil in Faridabad, Haryana. And a raid at his house over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, led to the discovery of around 3,000 kilos of IED making material. This including ammonium nitrate, batteries, wires, and stuff like that. This news broke Monday morning. Everybody thought, that's it. Modules get busted, recoveries are made. That's more or less it. People at that time did not know that one person had gotten away. That was Dr. Umar. He had gotten away. On Monday morning, he entered Delhi in an I-20 car. He drove around. He parked near the Red Fort at around 3 o'clock. At around 6:30, he left from the parking. He was driving down a busy street, and then his car blew, killing 12 people. What's happened here? And why on this episode am I gonna talk about this and then go and talk about Field Marshal Asim Munir, even though right now authorities haven't directly linked Pakistan or any Pakistani agency to this attack. For this and more, I have Sandeep Unnithan. Hey Sandeep, how are you?
Hey Dev, good to be back.
Yeah, good to have you. Sandeep, like I was saying, this is like a somber moment and brings back bad memories, because I'll tell you something that we were discussing on the news floor, that initially people thought it was a CNG blast.
Yes.
Because blasts in cities don't happen anymore, right? That's what we've been living for so many years, and it's over a decade now. I think the last such an explosion in Delhi at least took place maybe 14, 15 odd years
2011.
ago. Yeah. And another, I think, a blast, if I can recall very recently, would be the Rameshwaram cafe blast in Bengaluru, but that did not kill any people, and it was a very small sort of an improvised explosive. But the point I'm trying to make is the way this whole thing has unraveled. A module has lots of explosives, is spread across the country, is being, someone's arrested in one place, and then it leads cops to somewhere else. It gets busted, and then this fellow managed to make out of the way. And what happened? This is something that doesn't really happen anymore in India, but it has happened, which is why it is so scary, isn't it?
It is scary indeed, Dave. And I was on the news floor when this incident happened, and when I saw those first visuals that came out, I immediately knew it was a car bomb because, I've seen CNG cylinders blast. We are all used to seeing cars catch, fire as safe as they are. There are the one odd cases of CNG kits exploding or battery-operated vehicles catching fire. But this one was different. You could see from the blast radius that it was a proper explosive. Somebody had fashioned a car bomb of sorts, and that had gone off either deliberately or unintentionally. But the fact is, the end result is that we are left with a terror attack of sorts in the heart of the national capital. And that's why we should worry for exactly the reasons that you mentioned. And I have been seeing this, Dave, for now 3 decades. And I've grown old literally seeing terror attacks through cities. And as you mentioned, I mean, there is possibly a generation of Indians who are unaware of the terror of serial blasts in cities, targeting civilians, innocent people, men, women, children. And bombs don't discriminate on the basis of communities or religion. They target whoever is in the general vicinity of a blast. And I've seen blasts in Mumbai, my city where I come from, starting from 1993, all the way up to 26/11, and we've had a few cases after that. But this one is worrying because from what I sense is going on, there's been a slow build-up to that one blast in near the Red Fort over the last 6 months. And the story begins on the 12th of May, 2025, after Prime Minister Modi's speech, where he called out Pakistan's nuclear blackmail. So literally, I'm seeing that as a series of events. There are several events that have happened 6 months after Operation Sindoor. And this blast, exactly 6 months after, points to the Pakistan army going back to its old ways.
Yeah, right. So, like I said, we'll get to that. And also the interesting part of why India has been very measured in its response so far, in its statement so far. Very interestingly, no one officially has called it a terror attack yet, even though UAPA has been invoked, the anti-terror law.
And the NIA is
investigating. So obviously it is a terror attack. But when I say no one has said it, I don't mean to say they are couching it. What I mean to say is no one is going out there and making it sound like a terror attack, making it sound like a huge deal. It's a big deal. It's not a huge deal. Why is that happening? Why is Pakistan not yet been named formally is something also we'll discuss before we obviously discuss Pakistan. But just before that, Sandeep, and I think this would sort of answer my first question as well. Do you as a journalist, do you as a national security expert feel that it is highly complex to sometimes discuss matters of internal security vis-a-vis what we do on this podcast, which is usually discuss external security, national security, geopolitics? Because I think unlike with that, it's not so black and white when it comes to domestic acts of terrorism, because you have several different elements involved, several different people involved. Some of them are your own. Some of them are involved perhaps unwittingly. Take the case of the I-20 car. It has a chain of owners. Many of them may be completely innocent, but they are right now involved. So there's also, even for the police, they have to tread with caution. Like who is a terrorist, who is not a terrorist. And at the same time, you have an act like this going on. So do you as a commentator, do you as an analyst feel it's a bit complex for us to sit and have a discussion about this as well?
It is, Dave, and and that is exactly why we are talking about it, to make sense of this, what's going on. And the whole history of urban terrorism, and especially state-sponsored terrorism of the kind that we've been at the receiving end of for more than 4 decades now, aims to precisely create these kind of conflicts. When you use your own people, for instance, you weaponize them and use them against your own country. That is exactly what these deep state actors across the border are doing, right? By creating cells, using cutouts, using plausibly deniable hands that they can carry out terror attacks with. And we have seen it through the past, radicalized Indian youth have been used to carry out terror attacks. And when the Pakistan deep state felt that it wasn't enough for their devious plans, that the classic case I gave is in 1993. There was a phase 2 and a phase 3 of the bomb blasts, where the idea was that radicalized Indian youth were given weapons training. They were asked to go into storm landmarks in Mumbai, like Mantralaya and the Shiv Sena Bhavan, and attack and kill government officials. They didn't do that. They simply dropped their weapons and ran, which is why the Pakistan military then decided we got to send our own people. And that's how 26/11 happened several years later. So you're right. It is complex. It is when you're navigating among your own people, and you have a certain set of individuals who have been radicalized and who have been brainwashed and who have been asked to carry out attacks against their own people. Then that becomes more complicated. But then it is, in a sense, we are not facing an international ideology. I'm talking purely in the sense of India and Pakistan. We are actually faced with the Pakistan state, the Pakistan military, which has weaponized religion to use against India.
Yeah, right. So, about what's happened, I've described the chain of events that we know so far of how the investigation began. It almost seems like a fluke that
Right.
the Jammu Kashmir police and later the Haryana police were able to get onto this module of based on some posters being put up in an
Yes.
area outside of Srinagar, and they managed to bust this gang. And what officials are now saying is that this guy Dr. Abdul, he panicked basically
Yeah.
because of the
Yeah.
arrest, and then he sort of went towards Red Fort, and that he unintentionally may have blown up the
Right.
car. So based on what, and see, I'll be very honest to our listeners and viewers, we don't know a lot. It's just
Yeah.
over
It's a
day.
developing
It's a
story,
developing
absolutely.
story.
Yes.
So all the inferences that we have on during the discussion, everything that Sandeep has to say will be based on just first, like whatever
Yeah.
we know right now. So you know this for one day.
Yeah.
But like you said, you've been covering this field for 3 decades.
Yes.
You've seen similar kinds of
Yeah.
acts taking place previously. So when you see this, how it panned out, how it happened, and when you see back in the day what you saw,
Yeah.
how does it compare, and what does this tell you right now?
Well, this is exactly the modus operandi that the Pakistani deep state has used with previous attacks, whether it is the Delhi attacks in 2005. You've had several other serial blasts that were carried out in Indian states like Karnataka, in Gujarat, in Mumbai. The modus operandi is pretty much the same. What you do is that you create a terror cell. Now, a cell is something that the concept of a terror cell originated somewhere in the 19th century, which is to ensure that an organization is not completely compromised by the arrest of one or two individuals. So, which is why you break up the organization into smaller cells,
Right.
which you have a nodal person at the center of a cell, and he has a certain number of people around him, and they are given a particular task, a particular mission. And you have a number of cells making up the organization. And this is something that started in the far right groups in the late 19th century in Europe. And that was then, absorbed and, used by all terror groups, all covert actors, a lot of these, deniable operations carried out by governments to use the similar modus operandi. Covert actions, for instance, used by governments, they use cells so that the capture of one or two or three will not expose the whole organization. One person would only know his plan. That one person would have been tasked only to buy the car or purchase the explosives or assemble the bomb. He wouldn't know the whole plan, for instance. It's only the guy at the center who would know the whole plan, and he would be in the know of things, and he would be the person who the external actor would finally be in contact with. And here it seems to be the person who blew himself up, the doctor who blew himself up at Red Fort. He was possibly in contact with his handlers, and this is the LTT also used the same thing, and to my mind, a lot of viewers wouldn't know this story, that when the LTT put out a hit on Rajiv Gandhi, they had a cell here in Delhi that was operating at the same time as the bombers in Sri Perumbudur attacked him. And that cell was a very small 3-person cell. They had a LTT guy who had lost his leg. He was in charge of the cell. There was a suicide bomber, a lady called Athirai, and her alias was Sonia. She was 18 years old, and she was the one who would wear the suicide vest and try and attack Rajiv Gandhi here in Delhi. And you had an old man, 75-year-old man called Kanaga Sabapati. They were all 3 LTT operatives. So this 3-person module was here in Delhi. They were living in a government flat in RK Puram. And the cover was that this person, I think his name was Dixon, who had lost a limb. He was in Delhi for getting a prosthetic limb attached to Jaipur, and which is why he was under treatment. Kanaga Sabapati was an old man who had come to Delhi to get his supposed granddaughter English education. And Athirai, of course, was a student, and therefore they had this perfect aliases. It was just like a episode out of Homeland, and they were caught. when a number of those cell people were caught, they said there is another
Yeah.
cell that is active in Delhi as well, and that's how they caught hold of them. So that's how terror groups work. They have these compartmentalized units, cells, and this is something that the LET, the Jaish, which are basically arms of the Pakistan deep state, Pakistan Army's ISI, they've been functioning all along for, I would say, from the 90s, early 90s on.
One more thing about the investigation and the fluke moment.
Yeah.
Does it happen this way? Because it is quite scary to an extent. Because what if there was no investigation over those posters? They were posters, right?
Absolutely.
What if the local cops over there thought, "Ki chalo theek hai, yaar, it's not that big a deal."
Dave, you've hit the nail on the head. Had it not been for that alert SSP and those police officers in Jammu and Kashmir, they've done an excellent job and they must be complimented for that, but not too much, because that is their job, right? It is their job to tackle suspicious activity, go after suspicious individuals, and which is what they did. This is good old-fashioned police procedural work. They just looked at the posters. This is very unusual. Jaish-e-Mohammed posters in the middle of Srinagar. Who's putting them up? And that's when they started pulling the strings. And those strings, when they started pulling it, they landed up here in Faridabad, outside of Delhi.
Yeah.
One school of thought suggests that maybe, just maybe, the police should have held on to their horses before going out with the press release and announcing that they had busted a module and all that. Because we still don't know the details yet, but my reading of the situation is that maybe they should have held on to it, not revealed the fact that they had busted a big module like this, because it so happens that you might not get everyone in under one roof. And there are people who are, torpedoes in the water, to use a naval term.
Yeah.
That one of these guys, the main bomber, was already out there with the vehicle-borne explosive.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in this case. It's a case of the investigating agencies coming, busting the module, doing excellent work, following up the leads, coming to the module, and then one of these members of the module panics and he runs and he carries out what he's supposed to have done much later. That's what the inference is, that this was not actually meant to be a bomb that would go off on the 10th of November. It was possibly to coincide with some event, either a religious or a political event or a national event, to send out a message, right? And in this case, it so happens that things didn't go as per plan. And that's when this detonation happened, which is why I think the government is very careful on, they're not calling it a terror attack also, but there are other reasons for that as well, which we will
discuss. Yeah, we will just discuss that. But interesting point about you saying that perhaps they should not have sent out the press release, told media people that we've busted such a module, because I don't know if you know about this. There is a Reddit post that was made around 1 p.m. on Monday. The guy said, I just came back from somewhere. He landed in Delhi airport, and he's seeing a lot of fatigues, army men. He thought they were army men and policemen around Old Delhi.
Right.
And after the blast happened that evening, a lot of people have lashed onto the post saying that they knew that one guy had gotten away and they were trying to find him. So maybe that also happened. We will not know that in the near future. Sandeep, before we go to the India's response, and then because India's response is going to be very important to talk about, because we are going to talk about Pakistan, but India is not. So why is the government not? And then we'll talk about why we are going to talk about Pakistan. One quick tangent, especially because you are somebody who knows a lot about explosives and guns and stuff like that. It's a compliment, by the way. Ammonium nitrate fuel oil. What is this element that is supposed to have caused this massive blast?
So, ANFO, that's what you said, ammonium nitrate fuel oil. It's a very, very potent explosive. And the thing about it is that it is easily availability, affordability. It costs just about 2,000 rupees a kg. It's used by fertilizers, farmers use it for fertilizers and all that. It's deemed a precursor chemical, right? Freely available, and it's been used, as per one study, something like 70% of all terror attacks worldwide have used ammonium nitrate.
Wow.
Because it's so easily available. And in terms of blast force, it is closest to TNT, right?
All right.
It's not as good as, say, RDX. RDX is hard to come by, right? They're military-grade explosives. They're manufactured only by certain facilities. Getting hold of it is difficult. TNT, that's commercial explosive, dynamite, that's hard to get as well. That's also very strictly regulated. But ammonium nitrate is dual-use chemicals, right? It's fertilizers. It's used, and that's how people have been using them as fertilizer bombs. Timothy McVeigh, for instance, who carried out that Oklahoma bombing in 1995, I think 160 people were killed, 168. It's the largest domestic terror attack on US soil. That was carried out by an ammonium nitrate explosive. So it's a very potent explosive. And the most important thing about it is that it allows you, if you're the Pakistan deep state, deniability, right? You can stock up large, piles of this explosive, use it to carry out multiple terror attacks and all that, which is what seems to have been the plan here in the Red Fort bombing, the cell that was uncovered in Faridabad. But, we've seen the blast effect of ammonium nitrate in Beirut, when that massive stock of ammonium nitrate that was stored in the port of Beirut went off. It's one of the largest non-nuclear blasts in history.
Yeah.
Right, massive explosion. So it's a very, very potent thing, and it has a blast wave that is about, I think, 6,000 meters per second. That's the thing of the blast wave. That's nearly approaching TNT standards. TNT is about 9,000 meters per second, and RDX is twice that. It goes into the tens of thousands. But this is the easiest to assemble a weapon, availability, ease of transport, all of those things.
Yeah.
That's what makes it very attractive to terrorists. And when you mix it with fuel oil, then it becomes this very lethal combination, in ANFO, ANFO bombs. And that's what this cell was planning to do.
Right. Yeah. In fact, I think what makes it also easier is the fact that you can source it in the target country. Unlike with, let's say, RDX that was used in the Pulwama bombing, you'd have to supply it to the terrorist that was carrying out the attack, and that will probably have to come across the border, which would then leave a trail, and that would be dangerous and stuff like that. Here, you just radicalize a bunch of doctors, by the way, who use their credentials to be able to source this even more easily than they would have as a layperson.
Without arousing suspicion.
Exactly, right. So let's talk about India's response. So for the first few hours, it wasn't even deemed a terror attack. It was Amit Shah, I think, the Home Minister, had a late night press conference where he said all angles are being probed. You instantly knew because of your experience. Even I had an inkling because I covered the arrest earlier in the day, and in my head it was like, it can't be that. It's just too much of a coincidence for this to happen just a few hours after what the arrest that happened with that amount of haul. But for the last number of people, it was probably either a CNG plus or something of that sort. It's only next day in the morning when Delhi police said that we've registered a case under UAPA, that it was classified a terror attack, and then you had all this information coming in linking the supposed driver, Dr. Umar. I think I misnamed him earlier, so it's Dr. Umar, to the Faridabad module and stuff like that. You've had the PM making a comment on it, again, very interestingly making a English comment on it when he was in Bhutan. Put out an English statement, just like he did after the Pahalgam terror attack when he was in Bihar. He put out an English statement in the middle of a speech. You've had Rajnath Singh talking about it, but you haven't had the statements of the sort that you had after Pahalgam, after Pulwama, because unlike with Pahalgam, unlike with Pulwama, unlike with 26/11, you haven't made that immediate, direct, overt association with Pakistan. Right? With 26/11, you had people literally coming from there. With Pulwama, you had lots of investigative evidence pointing to the RDX chain, for example. Pahalgam also, you knew people came from there. Here, like we discussed, it's a bit more complex. These are people who were born in Jammu and Kashmir. These are people who've been involved with other citizens of India. So India has not yet directly blamed Pakistan, but you have police officials telling media that there's a Jaish link to this module. Why do you think is this the case?
Well, I go back to what Prime Minister Modi said on the 12th of May when he made that famous speech putting out India's red lines, where he said that every attack against India would be construed a terror attack. the fact that there would be no distinction between non-state and state actors, and nuclear blackmail would not be tolerated. So this point about every terror attack being construed as an attack on India is a very important statement, and thereby it basically says that India will have to respond to a terror attack through force. Now, how do you distinguish a terror attack of the magnitude that would determine a response?
Yeah.
So you have to be careful about that. And I think that is what the government has been doing to see the extent of this terror attack. What is the kind of plan that they had? Did they actually carry out the plan? Did we preempt them? And I think the sense that I'm getting is that this attack was actually preempted.
Okay.
They preempted the terrorist module before they could actually carry out that attack. And as they say, with all preventive action, it is that one goal that you will be remembered for, that you missed, but all the other saves would all be forgotten. And in this case, it's a bit of a gray area. You got hold of the module before they could do large-scale damage. One of those guys got away, and he triggered off a blast. We don't know exactly how. It's 9 individuals. It's terrible what happened. Even that should not have happened. But does that warrant a response from India? I think that is what the political leadership must be thinking right now. And the silence about this is exactly what you mentioned, is they are assessing the whole story. Figuring out whether there was a clear link between Jaish and this module. What was their plans? Who was in the loop? What did they plan to strike at? And if so, what would be the thing? And that would determine our response. So I think they're being very measured in how they respond to this. There's not going to be any, quick, instant action on that based on this, what we've seen so far. I think the government is playing a wait and watch strategy, but there will definitely be a response. We don't know of what kind it will be.
Yeah, right. We'll talk more about this, but after a quick break.
Here is a very key component. No true manufacturer has been dominant in a way in Formula E, the way the manufacturers
If
have
you're
been.
a motorsport fan, true motorsport fan, this is something that you will really expect.
We have seen manufacturers being dominant in a lot of series. Let's talk
Series.
Let's talk WEC, Toyota, Porsche, Ferrari, since their comeback. Formula 1, Ferrari, I mean, they used to, but like Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren now. But Formula E is not like that. Formula E is different. No true driver, no true manufacturer. I mean, I don't mean true in that sense, but like, not one has just gone ahead and dominated everything else, won everything. And, I feel that's a good thing because, okay, we have all seen how manufacturers start losing the game once there's just one driver and one manufacturer constantly winning. I mean, I get bored when one guy is winning.
But I think that's what true motorsport is really about. Really high highs and then really low lows, which is the perfect transition for the Gen 3 platform, and just how difficult it was for Mahindra in this period, because they went from the highs of Gen 2 to critical reliability issues to a point where their entire internal management and their technical team needed to be restructured from the ground up. They did not leave the sport. They changed the way they were playing it, and that again is just testament to the tenacity of this manufacturer. They're like a pit bull. They've got their teeth in and they're staying there.
Welcome back. We've been discussing the Delhi Red Fort blast that took place earlier this week. We've talked about the module that is supposed to be behind it, our initial impressions of what has happened, how the Indian government has reacted to it, or rather has not reacted to it, and why so. Now I want to talk about Pakistan and Field Marshal Asim Munir. So like I said at the beginning of this episode, even though the Indian government has not formally directly linked Pakistan to it, you already have officials telling media people that, there is a Jaish link somewhere. We're trying to determine that. And before the break, you were talking about they're going to be meticulously looking at how solid is that link. But I want to talk about Pakistan because, see, it would be very obvious that for a cell like this
Yeah.
to be able to operate, there has to be some sort of background backing coming from
Yes.
Pakistan. Otherwise, it's not really possible, right? That would be our thought. So but just before that, I want to understand one thing. So because I am very new to this concept, I mean, as in I haven't seen a cell like this so up close in my career. You have. What I want to understand is, so when you have all these cells across India, when you used to have them, whether it was whatever terrorist organization, are they sort of like, micromanaged from across the borders, or are they just like, those cells are made,
Yeah.
those are infiltrated across the borders, they are, in the society,
Yeah.
and then they just like do their own thing and find their own way and carry out their own attacks?
Right. Good question, Dave. And how a cell usually works is that all the members of the cell will not be in contact with the handlers, right? Because that would compromise the operation. So if there was a cell, like for instance, the Faridabad cell, Dr. Umar, if it was actually proved that he was in touch with handlers across the border, and there seems to be certain chatter around that, the fact is that it would be only him who would be in touch with the handler and not everyone else. So to the members of the cell, he would be like this, motivator and, the chief plotter
He's the
and
guy
the
carrying it
leader.
out.
He's the leader. He's the
Right.
leader. But he won't necessarily tell all of them that I'm in touch with, ABC or XYZ across the border, right? So every cell usually has just one person who's in contact with the handler. And that's done for reasons of operational security. You don't want to compromise the operation. One guy might get picked up or caught, and he'll say that, oh, listen, we have a cell over here and we're in touch with, our handlers across the border and all that. So that's why, and possibly that is the reason also that he might have decided to go and kill himself or, trigger off that bomb. We don't know exactly what happened, but the fact is that what actually finally happened is that he blew up in that car with a lot of explosives. So thereby cutting the links between this module and external actors.
Yeah.
So it's always the case, and it was the case in the Batla House thing as well, where there was an entire module that was unearthed that were carrying out serial blasts across the country that was linked to the Indian Mujahideen, and one person among them was supposed to have been in contact with handlers across the border.
Right. Interesting. Right. Right. So Pakistan and Asim Munir and this doctrine of bleed India with 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I did not know this until yesterday. There's an entire Wikipedia page to bleed India with 1,000 cuts, to this doctrine. So I never knew that it was something. I always thought it was something, journalists and experts like you used to sort of explain the larger theory of what you're trying to explain, because it's a very short phrase and it is very, it's evocative and you understand very instantly what you're trying to say with it. But there's an entire Wikipedia page devoted to it.
Not
this
surprised.
doctrine, it's sort of an overview and, how many times it's supposed to have been used. So I want you to do that actually, Sandeep. Sort of an academic question before we talk about why Asim Munir is reverting to this to this doctrine that you said was masterfully used by Parvez Musharraf.
Yeah.
What is this doctrine? When did it first come to be used amongst people like you in your journalistic circles?
Well, so Pakistan has had Asim Munir, Field Marshal Asim Munir is the 5th military dictator in Pakistan.
Yeah.
There have been 4 before him. There was the first one, of course, is Field Marshal. This guy, what's his name? Ayub Khan, right? Field Marshal Ayub was the first dictator, took over in 58 and gave up in 11 years later, replaced by his successor Yahya Khan. These two guys were, they came with a lot of fanfare and glory, and they've retreated in complete disgrace, both of them. Now, things start to change in 77 when Ziaul Haq takes over, General Ziaul Haq, and he is condemned internationally for taking over power, deposing Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, murdering him. It was actually called a judicial execution in Pakistan. But then, lo and behold, what happens is the Soviet Union decides to invade Afghanistan. And Zia suddenly, from a pariah, becomes a frontline ally in the war against the Soviet Union. Where have we heard that before? it keeps repeating. History keeps repeating in Pakistan every couple of decades. And Zia then becomes this frontline ally in the US's war against the Soviet Union, proxy war. And what happens is between 79 and 88, the US, the CIA, and all the intelligence agencies, even the Chinese, they are supplying weapons to Zia and the Pakistan ISI. And an organization that was a very small, a dhaba, a roadside dhaba, becomes a big McDonald's franchise, right? That was a transformation of this 1979 to 1988, this US-supported war on the Soviet Union, proxy war on the Soviet Union. It transformed the ISI. And when the Soviets retreated from Afghanistan in 1988 and the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, do you know what it did to the generals in GHQ Rawalpindi? They said, look, the Soviet Union, the most powerful country in the world, was vanquished by us. We played such a key role in that. It collapsed. They withdrew from Afghanistan, then they collapsed. We can do the same with India. And so you saw from the 1980s, the full force of what I call Operation Cyclone's leftovers. Operation Cyclone was the entire CIA-funded arms pipeline into Pakistan, which went into Afghanistan. A lot of it was diverted first into Punjab, where there was an insurgency that they had stoked from the late 80s, from mid 80s to the early 90s. And then in the early 90s into Jammu and Kashmir. And the Pakistan military was convinced that if we keep attacking India there, tying down their soldiers over there, and later carrying out terror attacks across India, terrorizing India with this nuclear umbrella that they had, that was in the basement then in the 80s, it came out in 1998, India would collapse. So their whole fundamental thing of their warfighting strategy was this death by 1,000 cuts. You bleed the Indian army in Jammu and Kashmir. You carry out terror attacks across the hinterland in Delhi, in Bombay, in Bangalore, and lo and behold, India will collapse. Something like that is the strategy that they came up with. So to impose a lot of penalties, that's how this whole death by 1,000 cuts strategy originated. And this was something that originated in the General Ziaul Haq years. And it was actually implemented by Pervez Musharraf on a very large scale, post-1999.
Okay. So tell us about that. What did Musharraf do and where do you think Asim Munir is now taking it?
Well, what Musharraf did was that the militancy in Kashmir, terrorism in Kashmir was confined to Jammu and Kashmir. It never spilled out of the valley, so to say.
Yeah.
But after Kargil and particularly after the nuclearization of the subcontinent, after the Pokhran tests and then the Chagai tests of 1998, Musharraf is the one who figured out this, what we call today, this nuclear weapons-enabled terrorism strategy, where he said, look, we can do what we want to. India will not retaliate conventionally using its superior military machine. And you saw evidence of that. They first struck at the Red Fort. That was a trial, 2000, December 2000. Before that, you had the Kandahar hijack, soon after Kargil. Then you had 2001, they came and attacked Parliament, India's Parliament, leading to a large-scale mobilization by India, Operation Parakram. But then, again, all in the Musharraf years, you had the serial bombings all across India through these cutouts like Indian Mujahideen. You had attacks in Mumbai, two very big attacks, 2006, the July 2006 train bombings in Mumbai, where 7 trains were bombed, 209 people were killed. And then, of course, 26/11. All of this happened during General Pervez Musharraf's tenure. Ashfaq Pervez Kayani was the DGISI, the first DGISI to become army chief, right? Asim Munir is only the second DGISI to become army chief. And in his case, he's also been the head of the military intelligence.
Yes.
So he's both the ISI as well as the MI. And now he is, to my understanding, trying to do what Zia did and trying to do what Musharraf did. That grand strategy that Musharraf did of pushing terror attacks into India's heartland, and which was abandoned post 26/11. You saw just 1 or 2 blasts because Musharraf's successors, Kayani, the Bajwa, Rahil Sharif. They said, look, we don't want to do this kind of thing. It's too risky. Munir, Field Marshal Munir is a risk taker.
Okay.
If you look at it. And he's restarted this strategy. He thinks that that's going to get him, that analogy that he used in that meeting in the United States, that India is the shiny sports car and I'm
a
dumpster, a dump truck running over there. He wants to, he's actually thinking like a suicide bomber. And that's really, really dangerous. Because what Munir doesn't realize is that the India of 2025 is not the India of Vajpayee, it's not the India of Manmohan Singh. You have a Prime Minister Modi, who's called out nuclear blackmail, who's understood the game plan, who's called out the nuclear blackmail, who said there is nothing like state and non-state. And we saw that during Op Sindoor, when the Pakistan military had to come out and acknowledge the fact that these terrorists were actually their own actors, their own state actors, right? And the fact that any major terror attack like 26/11 or 2006 or 1993 would be seen as an act of war. So he is on extremely dangerous ground. And that is precisely the reason that I believe that his clock started ticking the minute Prime Minister Modi gave that speech on the 12th of May, where he drew those new red lines. And that is why in the last 6 months, if you've seen, Munir has been running helter-skelter all over the world. First going to Saudi Arabia, then to China, then to the United States, securing all his traditional external partners, giving them whatever they wanted. You want minerals, take minerals. You want nuclear weapons, take nuclear weapons. Whatever he has, he's put on the table. And now, of course, this 27th Amendment of the Pakistani Constitution, which has made him the most powerful military figure in Pakistan post its creation.
Yeah, right. And, to just sort of take this forward naturally and try to understand the motivations behind this. Something briefly we talked about just before we began recording is Munir as the person. Because, to a lay person, to me, it sounds like, but ye karna kyun hai tumko? Like, running helter-skelter. Your country is in a mess. You are in an economic bind. You are under so many... the threat of so many sanctions from international agencies. You have to constantly prove to them that, your account sheet is fine, your funding, our dealings aren't with terrorist organizations. So you have to basically hide those transactions and sort of present a clean balance sheet. In all this, why would a Pakistani general, why would a Pakistani army chief decide, let me go back to that old strategy of Pervez Musharraf and needle India and poke India and bleed India with 1,000 cuts. Ultimately, milna kya hai?
Well, good question, Dev. And you have to understand the mindset of the Pakistan military. Ever since they've taken over power in 1958 under Field Marshal Munir, Field Marshal Ayub Khan, Munir is the newest field marshal, but they've never truly given up power. And what has happened is that all the institutions that have existed in Pakistan, whether it's the judiciary, whether it's the political class, whether it's the citizenry, the executive, all of these have been diminished. So Pakistan has what I call a bonsai democracy. You have the military that is this gigantic structure, this huge banyan tree under which nothing grows. And with this 27th Amendment, Munir has finished off all the other institutions. He's finished off the executive. The politicians are anyway at his beck and call. I mean, they're the weakest lot of politicians that Pakistan has probably seen in probably half a century. He's even, killed the judiciary with the 27th Amendment. The 26th actually finished off the judiciary with the judicial appointments being decided by the executive. He has systematically eroded all the institutions, and it's only the military that is standing. Now, the military sees everything militarily, right? What is their priority? Their priority is a national security priority. And when you see everything through that prism, as they say, when all you have in your hand is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail to you, Oh, that's a nail, bang. India is a nail, I must try and, it's a big nail, but I will try little cuts. I will reduce its size. So that Pakistan military is a very strange kind of a military. It's not won a single war since 1947. But as Professor Christine Fair, avid watcher of India and Pakistan. She said that you have to understand how they define victory. For them, defeat is when they stop fighting. They might surrender, they might lose half the country in 71, but they have to keep fighting. For them, defeat means when they stop fighting, when they cease fighting, that is defeat. When you framed your entire notions of victory and defeat thus, they will just want to keep on fighting and fighting. And that's what Munir said, I will just keep fighting. And that's why one of her books is, Christine Fair's books is called Fighting to the End. And Munir now is this complete, he's a bit of an unhinged character. If you've seen his kind of speeches, and these are speeches that even Zia and Musharraf, for all their, wild nature, I mean, they've done things that are pretty reprehensible, both of them, right? I solely hold them responsible for a series of terror attacks which have killed a lot of Indians. But they never spoke like this, the way Munir does. Munir speaks like someone who actually believes in all of this. Right? He actually believes in holy war against India, and that this is actually a clash of the civilizations. He's a dangerous kind of a character, right? In a way that Musharraf was not. Musharraf might have actually expanded Pakistan's war against the Indian heartland. He's killed a lot of Indian civilians, right? But even his public pronouncement, if you saw, were not as unhinged as Field Marshal Munir's, where this entire thing of screaming holy war. Military chiefs don't do that, and especially people who are vested with so much of power. And today he has formalized the fact that of the 9 nuclear weapon states, there is only one in the world which directly controls nuclear weapons. The military is the Pakistan military is the only military in the world that directly controls nuclear weapons. And that's a very dangerous place to be. And he believes that he can do what the other dictators, the 4 dictators prior to him, tried to do but couldn't, which is basically tackle India, downsize India, achieve parity with India. Their whole game is to achieve parity with India.
Yeah.
Keep fighting, doing all of that. And I'm sure this is what he thinks as he walks down that corridor at GHQ Rawalpindi. I haven't seen pictures, but I assume that there must be a corridor lined with portraits of Pakistan Army chiefs. And Munir possibly walks down that corridor and looks at them and just, like, you guys couldn't do what I'm going to do.
Doing.
I'm the man. I'm the most powerful, field marshal in Pakistan's history. I'm going to do all this.
Yeah.
What you guys tried and failed.
Yeah. I guess you saw that actually earlier this year when a few days before the Pahalgam terror attack, he gave that rabid speech. And even the attack itself, it was the barbarity of which was quite shocking. I remember reading somewhere, some expert, I think a retired police officer said that it requires a special kind of radicalization to train your terrorists to kill people at point blank range. It's one thing to train a squad of for gunmen to go and bomb a place, fight in place, kill people, but it's another to tell them to take them hostage and kill them at point blank range. So that sort of maybe I'm guessing is what you're sort of hinting at when you talk about Munir's mindset and what he thinks about himself and the holy war, which brings me to my question about, did India see him coming? So I'll take this example. When you have elections happening in, let's say, the United States, a country that has significant, we have significant ties with, you'll obviously have the MA bring out their dossiers and do sort of a red book, green book analysis of all candidates. If Kamala Harris comes to power, this is what we'll have to deal with. If Donald Trump comes to power, I don't know, who knows what they'll have to deal with, because even Donald Trump does not know what he has to deal with. Then the next day is like he loves to say.
Right.
But jokes apart, you would have many governments do that analysis. If these guys come to power, this is what will happen. If these guys come to power, this is what we'll have to deal with. So you do that analysis. Did India analyze the upcoming army chief? Are we analyzing upcoming army chiefs of Pakistan and thinking of what happens when they come into the chief's office and what happens after that?
Right. A good question, Dev. Now, the thing is that this psychoprofiling is done for all our intelligence agencies do this as a matter of routine for all political figures, military figures across the border in both China and in Pakistan. And I'm aware of the fact that the one was done for Munir, but I'm not sure whether they actually predicted that Munir would actually go off like this on a rant and reveal his true colors in 2025. Because if you saw him pre 2025, he was pretty under the radar kind of
Actually,
guy.
yes.
Everyone missed him. We didn't even know who the Pakistan military chief was until he actually stood up and gave that speech in 2025, a few days before the Pahalgam attack. So he's a guy who kind of kept his convictions and his beliefs to himself. Deeply religious guy. All of that was known. But I'm not sure whether any of the psychoprofiling predicted that he would actually strike the way he did. And possibly also Trump. Would he react the way he did? Did we predict it? Did we become a bit too complacent when Trump took over? These are big questions that I think we must answer. Did our leadership miss that? The fact that Trump 2.0 was going to be very different from Trump 1.0. And he was a man in a hurry in search of a legacy. And what you saw is a meeting of these two people in a hurry, Trump and Munir. And they are now best buddies, right? And Trump has openly called him my favorite general. And when American presidents say my favorite general, then a lot of countries in the vicinity have to worry, right? Because that's how they love doing business. And that's where the Pakistan military has always provided that, yes, sir, 2 bags full. It's from the time of Ayub to Yahya to Zia to Musharraf and now finally Asim Munir. The general always delivers.
Right. So if we would take that point forward and as the last point on this episode, because I don't want to ask you a very typical question of, oh, what do you think is going to happen next? Oh, should India be worried? Because these are not really questions you can answer in black and white, not questions you can answer very easily. But the question I'd rather ask you is, are alarm bells ringing within the establishment, national security establishment, about Asim Munir? Because he's going to be there for a while now, right? Especially thanks to what he's done with the constitution. Now he's going to be the field marshal for the rest of his life. At some point, maybe he'll appoint a general to oversee the daily affairs of the army, but he'll wield control of the military.
Vice chief. He'll never give up the military
he won't.
chief. No.
Interesting.
I don't think he's going to give up the army.
So you can answer that. You can talk about that as well when you answer this question, before you answer this question. So yeah, our alarm bell is ringing in the establishment about Asim Munir and that, we've got something crazy on our hands. It's going to be a tough fight going forward.
Yeah. Yes, alarm bells are ringing. But I don't think it is something that we can't handle.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Because Munir is here for the long haul, right? He's given himself another extension, which means he can serve for another 2 years and then beyond that. So he's literally like what Xi Jinping is president for life.
Yeah.
He's field marshal for life. And it is up to him to decide when he wants to step down. He's not very old. He's under 60, right? So he has a long road ahead of him. Unless something in Pakistan happens, and every dictator has come to power in Pakistan thinking they're there forever. But then, events, dear boy, events.
Yes.
That's what happens. And we've seen that with absolute meticulous precision. It's happened to every single dictator. Ayub, Yahya, Zia, Musharraf, and now, who knows, it could be Munir's turn. And there's one person who's standing between Munir and his projections of power and greatness and all of that is the man who's in Adiala jail right now.
Captain of the Pakistan team.
Captain of the Pakistan team, former Prime Minister Imran Khan. If Imran Khan bends to Asim Munir and he says, yes, you are the supreme overlord and field marshal and president and general for life, I bow to thee. Please allow me to come out and live my last years in retirement or exile. Nothing stops Munir, right? Yeah. There is no threat on the horizon. I'm not even counting the TTP or those are terrorist actors. But politically, a figure around whom civilians can coalesce and then overthrow this hated dictator, Imran Khan is the only option.
Yeah. Imran Khan is the only option, and that's what we'll watch and we'll discuss on this podcast as we go forward. But quick point about what you said. I want to know the answer. I want to know the reason you said that Munir will not give up the army chief's office, because I thought it would be very obvious if he's field marshal, he won't really need to be the army chief. But you said that won't happen. Why so?
Because, the whole command structure of the Pakistan military, right? The corps commanders, they only answer to the army chief.
Right.
They don't care about any field marshal. He can call himself whatever, chief of defense force. He's got rid of COJC.
Yeah.
He's now calling himself the chief of defense forces, which means basically what's left of the Pakistan Air Force and Navy will also come under the thing. It is a structure that's always existed in Pakistan. He's only formalized it.
Okay.
But he will never move out of the Pakistan army chief's post. Musharraf literally wept and gave way to Kayani because the Americans forced him to. Right? That was the only force on earth that could get Musharraf to give up the army chief's post. Zia never gave up the army chief's post, though a lot of the day-to-day work was carried out by the vice chief.
Okay.
So he will probably appoint a vice chief and get his work done through him, as Zia did, as Musharraf did. But they will never give up the army chief's thing, because the entire Pakistan military answers only to the Pakistan army chief.
Cool. I think we'll end the episode there then. Thanks, Sandeep. And I think, like the Indian establishment, we're also going to keep a very close eye on Asim Munir and discuss more about him when we need to. So thanks so much. Great discussion.
Thanks,
always.
Dave. As always. Thank you.
And thanks as always to our listeners and viewers. That's it for this week's Defense Dose. For more, tune in next week. Till then, stay safe and not cross any boundaries with our passport. Bye-bye.